The evacuation siren wailed across the research outpost on Kepler 186F, its shrill cry cutting through the perpetual twilight of the alien world. Emergency lights flashed crimson, bathing the sleek metal corridors in an ominous glow. Scientists and military personnel rushed toward the landing pads, their faces masks of controlled panic as they clutched whatever personal belongings they could grab. Staff Sergeant Jack Reed pressed his back against the wall, allowing the flood of people to rush past. His dark eyes scanned the crowd methodically, counting heads against the mental roster he maintained. Someone was missing. "Where's Vela?" he shouted to Dr. Marsh, the head scientist who was ushering his team toward the exit. "The specimen." Marsh barely slowed. "We've initiated containment protocols. The facility will self-destruct after evacuation." Jack's expression hardened. "Vela isn't a specimen. She's a sentient being, a refugee we promised to protect. She's unpredictable. The indigenous forces are coming for her specifically. We can't risk." "She's a child," Jack cut him off, disgust evident in his voice. Dr. Marsh hesitated only briefly. "The last transport leaves in 15 minutes. Don't miss it, Sergeant." Then he was gone, swept away in the tide of evacuees. Jack turned and ran against the flow, his combat boots echoing in the increasingly empty corridors. The research wing was already deserted, equipment abandoned mid-experiment. He reached the secure habitat section and punched his override code into the panel. The door hissed open. Inside the circular chamber designed to mimic her natural environment, Vela huddled in a corner. Her luminescent skin pulsed with rapid flashes of deep blue. Fear, Jack had learned. Her 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, on her delicate face, widened at his approach. The feathery gills along her neck fluttered rapidly. "They're leaving me," she said in her melodious voice, the translation device at her throat converting her native clicks and whistles. "I feel the evacuation sequence." "I'm not leaving you," Jack said firmly, kneeling to her level. "But we need to move quickly." Vela unfolded her slender form, rising to her full height of barely 4 feet. "The elders have found me. They will destroy everything to prevent my knowledge from spreading." "What knowledge?" Jack asked, helping her gather the few possessions she treasured. A collection of earthstones, a datapad filled with human literature, the truth about our genetics, about the ancient connection between our peoples. Her skin rippled with amber, patterns, urgency. "They fear what I've discovered in your archives." The outpost trembled as the first distant explosions reached them. The indigenous forces had breached the outer defenses. 10 minutes to complete evacuation. 9 minutes to self-destruct sequence, the AI announced calmly overhead. Jack made a decision. "We're not taking the transport. They'll search it first." He accessed a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a narrow passage. "Emergency maintenance tunnels led to the old mining shaft and a secondary hangar." "There are ships there?" Vela asked, hope causing her skin to flicker with green sparks. "One scout vessel. Basic hyperdrive. Not comfortable, but it'll get us to the relay station in the Tau Ceti system." Jack checked his sidearm and the emergency pack he always kept ready. "From there, we can contact people I trust." The facility shook again, more violently this time. The lights flickered. 7 minutes to complete evacuation. "Why are you staying when the others left?" Vela asked as they slipped into the maintenance tunnel. Jack sealed the panel behind them. "Because promises matter. Because leaving someone behind isn't what humans do." He activated his wrist light, illuminating the dark passageway ahead. "At least not what this human does." They moved swiftly through the tunnel as the counted minutes ticked away, the sound of distant explosions growing louder behind them. The scout vessel was little more than an elongated teardrop of metallic gray, tucked away in the forgotten mining hangar that predated the research outpost. Jack had discovered it months ago during his security sweeps and had quietly ensured it remained functional, just in case. 5 minutes to complete evacuation. 4 minutes to self-destruct sequence. The AI's voice reached them even here, transmitted through his military comm band. Jack helped Vela into the cramped cockpit, her delicate limbs folding gracefully into the co-pilot's seat designed for a much larger human frame. Her luminescent skin cast a soft glow over the controls, as her 4 eyes darted nervously around the unfamiliar space. "Can you fly this?" she asked, her translator making her voice sound unnaturally calm, despite the fear-blue pulses rippling across her skin. "Not as well as some. Better than most," Jack replied, his fingers dancing over the startup sequence. The vessel hummed to life, systems booting up one by one. Outside, the ground trembled. Through the view screen, they saw a flash of light as one of the main laboratory buildings collapsed in the distance. "The Elders have breached the inner perimeter," Vela said quietly. "They're using the void weapons." "The what now?" Jack asked, not pausing in his preparations. "Technology forbidden to most of my kind. It unmakes matter." Her skin darkened to a deep purple. "They truly fear what I know." The hangar doors were sealed shut, emergency lockdown protocols in full effect. Jack activated the vessel's forward lasers, intended for clearing space debris, not for this, and fired a sustained burst at the center of the doors. Metal glowed red, then white, then began to melt away. 3 minutes to self-destruct sequence. Jack punched the thrusters. The scout vessel lurched forward, squeezing through the half-melted opening in a shower of sparks and twisted metal that screamed against the hull. They burst into the alien twilight, the perpetual dusk of Kepler 186f stretching before them. Behind, the research outpost was already partly ablaze. Secondary explosions blooming like deadly flowers as ammunition stores caught fire. "There," Vela pointed with a slender 6-fingered hand toward the horizon. "Those lights, the Elders' ships. A formation of crystalline vessels, translucent and glowing with internal energies, approached rapidly from the direction of the indigenous territories. They moved with impossible grace, defying known physics." "Hold on," Jack muttered, pushing the scout vessel into a steep climb. The ship groaned in protest as he forced it to accelerate beyond recommended atmospheric speeds. G-forces pressed them back into their seats as they hurtled toward space. Behind them, the outpost's self-destruct sequence triggered. A blinding flash temporarily overloaded the view screen as the antimatter containment fields collapsed. The shockwave hit them seconds later, tossing the small vessel like a leaf in a hurricane. Jack fought the controls, muscles straining as alarms blared throughout the cockpit. Warning lights flashed across nearly every system. The hull integrity was compromised in 2 sections. Emergency force fields snapped into place, barely containing their atmosphere. "The radiation will slow their pursuit," Vela said, her own hands now moving across the co-pilot controls, instinctively helping stabilize their flight path. "But not for long." Jack glanced at her with surprise. "You know how to fly?" A ripple of orange amusement crossed her luminous skin. "I've been watching humans for months. I learn quickly." They broke free of the atmosphere, the blackness of space enveloping them. Jack set course for the Tau Ceti jump point, the hyperdrive humming as it charged. "We have company," Vela said softly. 3 of the crystalline vessels had matched their trajectory and were gaining rapidly. Inside each, visible through their transparent hulls, stood tall, willowy figures with the same diamond-pattern eyes as Vela, but with skin that didn't glow. The Elders. "Hyperdrive at 60%, Jack noted, eyeing the readout. "We need 3 more minutes." The lead pursuing vessel fired, not a conventional energy weapon, but a twisting ribbon of darkness that seemed to devour the light around it. Jack wrenched the controls, narrowly avoiding the shot. "Void weapon," Vela whispered. "If it touches us—" "I get the picture," Jack replied grimly. He activated the vessel's rudimentary defensive systems, not weapons, but electronic countermeasures designed to confuse tracking systems. "Let's hope they're as susceptible to good old-fashioned chaff as human ships." The scout vessel released a cloud of metallic particles charged with disruptive energy patterns. The pursuing vessels hesitated momentarily, their crystalline structures briefly clouding as their pilots adjusted. 2 minutes to hyperdrive," Jack said. "We just need to—" Another void weapon fired, this one catching the edge of their port stabilizer. The affected section simply ceased to exist, the metal ending in a perfectly smooth edge where the dark energy had touched it. The scout vessel spun wildly as Jack fought to compensate for the suddenly asymmetrical aerodynamics. Warning alarms screamed throughout the cockpit. I can help, Vela said, her skin pulsing with determination. My people connect to machines through bioelectric fields. Before Jack could respond, she placed her six-fingered hands on the control panel. Her skin brightened intensely as energy flowed from her body into the ship's systems. The spinning slowed, then stabilized as the vessel's internal computers recalibrated with her assistance. 1 minute to hyperdrive, the computer announced. The crystalline ships closed in, forming a triangle formation that would box them in. Jack recognized the tactic, standard interdiction procedure, taught in military academies across human space. They're using your playbook, Vela observed, her connection to the ship apparently giving her insight into Jack's thoughts. Then let's try something that isn't in the book, Jack replied, a grim smile forming on his face. He cut all non-essential power, including life support, diverting everything to the hyperdrive and a single massive engine burn. The scout vessel lurched forward with crushing acceleration, heading directly toward the lead crystalline ship in what appeared to be a suicide run. The elder vessel hesitated, then began to move aside, exactly as Jack had hoped. He twisted the controls, sliding their ship through the momentary gap in their formation. Hyperdrive ready, the computer announced. Punch it, Jack shouted. The stars stretched into lines around them as the hyperdrive engaged, carrying them away. From Kepler 186f and into the relative safety of hyperspace. The cramped confines of the scout vessel became their world for the next 7 days. The damage sustained during their escape meant the hyperdrive could only operate at 70% efficiency, extending what should have been a 4-day journey to the Tau Ceti relay station. Jack had converted the tiny cargo hold into living quarters for Vela, adjusting the environmental controls to create the humid, ammonia-tinged atmosphere she needed to prevent her delicate skin from drying out. For himself, he took shifts sleeping in the pilot's chair, always alert for signs of pursuit. On the 3rd day, as they shared a meal of emergency rations, tasteless protein cubes for him, synthesized mineral paste for her, Vela finally explained what made her so valuable and so dangerous. My people call themselves the Lumina, she began, her translator converting the complex harmonics of her native speech. For 10,000 years, we've been ruled by the Elder Council, who maintain our isolation through stories of the dangerous universe beyond our world. Jack listened intently as she continued. I was a junior archivist, with access to our oldest historical records. I found inconsistencies, references to a time before we lived on Kepler 186f, suggestions that we once shared a world with another species. Her skin rippled with excitement, flashing patterns of scholarly enthusiasm. You think your people weren't always from that planet? I know we weren't, Vela replied firmly. The elders keep this truth hidden, because it undermines their authority. When humans established the research outpost, I saw my chance to learn more. She extended her delicate 6-fingered hand, skin glowing softly. 3 years ago, I approached your perimeter fence. When your scientists found me, I requested asylum and offered knowledge in exchange for access to your genetic databases. Jack nodded. I remember the reports from before I was stationed there. You were a diplomatic breakthrough. What I discovered changed everything. Vela's skin darkened to a solemn deep blue. Human and Lumina DNA share markers that cannot be explained by convergent evolution. We are related somehow. Ancient cousins, perhaps, seeded by the same precursor species. Jack's eyes widened. That would rewrite our understanding of human origins. Exactly why the elders want me silenced. It violates their creation myths and suggests our destiny lies among the stars, not in isolation. She made a gesture that Jack had come to recognize as deep sadness. When your scientists confirmed my findings, someone leaked the information. The elders responded by denouncing me as a heretic and demanding my return. And when the diplomatic channels failed, they threatened war, Vela finished. Your government ordered the evacuation rather than risk conflict over one alien refugee. Logical, from a military perspective. Jack's jaw tightened. Not from where I'm standing. We made you a promise. The ship's alarms suddenly blared to life, startling them both. The hyperdrive was fluctuating, power levels dropping dangerously. Jack rushed to the cockpit with Vela close behind. The damaged stabilizer is affecting the hyperdrive field integrity, he muttered. fingers flying over the controls. "We're going to have to drop out early." "How far from Tau Ceti?" Vela asked, taking the co-pilot's seat. "Too far." Jack's expression was grim. "We'll end up in unclaimed space, but we don't have a choice." The ship shuddered violently as he initiated emergency protocols. The star lines around them collapsed back into points as they dropped out of hyperspace. Ahead, a nondescript solar system appeared on their scanners. A yellow dwarf star with 6 planets, none charted or colonized. "The third planet has an atmosphere with oxygen and nitrogen," Vela observed, reading the scanner output. "Uninhabited, but potentially survivable for both of us." Another alarm sounded. The hyperdrive had suffered a catastrophic failure. Smoke began to fill the cockpit as circuits overloaded. "Survivable just became our only option," Jack said, adjusting their course toward the blue-green world ahead. "We're going to have to land and make repairs before we can continue." As they approached the planet, the full extent of their predicament became clear. The third planet was beautiful. Oceans of liquid water, swirling cloud patterns, and land masses, covered with vegetation. But it was also primitive, showing no signs of technology or civilization. "We'll be on our own until we can fix the ship," Jack said, as they began their descent through the atmosphere. The hull groaned ominously around them. Vela's skin pulsed with a pattern Jack hadn't seen before, a rapid sequence of blue, green, and amber. "What's that mean?" he asked, nodding toward her luminescent display. "Uncertainty," she replied softly. "But also possibility." The scout vessel broke through the cloud layer, revealing a vast landscape of purple-tinged forests stretching to a distant coastline. Jack searched for a suitable landing site, finally spotting a clearing large enough to accommodate their ship. "Brace for impact," he warned, as the damaged vessel wobbled in its approach. "This won't be pretty." Their landing was a controlled crash at best. The scout vessel plowed a furrow through the alien soil, before coming to rest against a stand of strange, fern-like trees with reddish trunks. Emergency systems deployed automatically, sealing breaches and stabilizing their life support. When the dust settled, Jack ran a quick diagnostic. "Power core intact, basic systems functional. Hyperdrive," he grimaced. "Completely fried. We'll need to fabricate new components." Vela gazed out the viewscreen at the alien world that would be their temporary home. In the distance, flying creatures with 6 wings soared above the canopy. A herd of something resembling deer, but with scaled hides, moved cautiously to investigate the crash site. "How long?" she asked simply. Jack considered the damage, mentally cataloging the resources they had available. "With the fabricator we have on board, 2 months, maybe 3. Vela's skin rippled with acceptance. "Then we adapt. As our ancestors must have done when they first encountered each other. Long ago." Jack nodded, unbuckling his restraints. "First step, secure the perimeter and assess local conditions. Let's see what our new home has to offer." Together, Human and Lumina stepped out onto the soil of an uncharted world. United by circumstance and a shared genetic heritage neither had known about just months earlier. The alien forest hummed with life around their makeshift camp. After 2 weeks on the unnamed planet, Jack had established a comfortable routine. Each morning he would check the perimeter sensors, hunt for food that his portable analyzer deemed safe for human consumption, and work on repairing the hyperdrive components. Vela, meanwhile, had proven remarkably adaptable. Her natural bioluminescence allowed her to communicate with several indigenous species that also used light patterns for expression. She discovered edible plants that provided nutrients her body needed and even identified mineral deposits crucial for fabricating replacement parts. "The 6-winged flyers have a rudimentary social structure," she told Jack one evening as they sat beside the small campfire outside their vessel. Her skin glowed softly in patterns of scholarly excitement. "They use color signals similar to my people, though much simpler." Jack nodded, turning a skewer of roasted local tubers over the flames. "Convergent evolution, or another connection like the one you found between humans and Lumina? I wish I had my research equipment," Vela sighed, her translator rendering her clicking speech wistful. "This entire planet is a biological treasure trove." They had fallen into an easy companionship, their differences becoming strengths in their shared struggle for survival. Jack appreciated Vela's keen observational skills and quick mind, while she admired his practical knowledge and unwavering determination. The fabricator hummed inside the scout vessel, slowly constructing another component for the damaged hyperdrive. At their current pace, they would be ready to attempt repairs in another 6 weeks. "I've been thinking," Jack said, passing Vela a portion of the tubers, which she grasped delicately with her 6-fingered hands. "When we reach Tau Ceti, we'll need a plan. The Elders won't stop hunting you, and Earther Military Command has already shown they won't protect you." Vela's skin darkened thoughtfully. "There are research outposts in the outer colonies where we could find sanctuary. Scientists there would be eager to continue my work on Lumina-human genetic connections." "The outer colonies are largely independent," Jack agreed, less likely to bow to diplomatic pressure. Their conversation was interrupted by a sharp alert from the perimeter sensors. Jack was on his feet instantly, sidearm drawn. "Movement in Sector 4, he said quietly, checking the readout on his wrist device. "Too large to be local wildlife." Vela's skin flashed with alarm patterns. "The Elders? Or human military?" Jack replied grimly. "Either way, we need to be ready to move." They quickly doused the fire and retreated into the scout vessel, sealing the hatch behind them. Jack activated the external cameras, scanning the darkening forest for signs of intrusion. The first indication came as a disturbance in the underbrush, about 100 meters away. Then, emerging from between the reddish tree trunks, came a figure that caused both of them to freeze in surprise. It wasn't an elder or a human soldier. The being that cautiously approached their camp walked on 4 legs, with a torso that rose vertically like a centaur from Earth mythology. Its skin was a mosaic of photoreactive patches similar to Vela's, though the patterns were different. 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern studied their vessel with unmistakable intelligence. "Impossible," Vela whispered, her own eyes wide with shock. That's a Lumina, but different." "A subspecies?" Jack suggested, equally stunned. "No," Vela replied, her skin pulsing with rapid realizations. "An evolutionary branch. A common ancestor that developed differently." More of the quadrupedal beings emerged from the forest, forming a semicircle around the scout vessel. None carried weapons, but their cautious approach suggested wariness. "They're trying to communicate," Vela said suddenly, pointing to the light patterns flickering across their bodies. "It's a primitive form of my people's language, but I recognize elements." "What are they saying?" "They're asking if we come from beyond the skylights. Their term for stars, I think." Vela moved closer to the view screen, fascinated. "They have legends about visitors from the stars, ancestors who promise to return." Jack considered their options. "If they're related to your people, they might help us. We could use local knowledge while we complete repairs." "I want to meet them," Vela decided, her skin rippling with determination. "Hold on," Jack cautioned. "We don't know if the atmosphere is safe for you without filtration." After a brief analysis of the external conditions, they determined that Vela could safely breathe the local air for short periods. With her translator device secured and Jack keeping his sidearm holstered but ready, they cautiously opened the hatch. The quadrupedal beings retreated several steps but didn't flee. Jack let Vela take the lead, staying slightly behind her protective stance. Vela's skin illuminated with carefully constructed patterns, a greeting in the ancient form of her people's light language. The beings watched, transfixed, before the apparent leader stepped forward and responded with its own luminescent display. "They call themselves the Coda," Vela translated for Jack. "They say their ancestors came from the sky many generations ago, when the sky ships broke and couldn't return to the stars." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "Shipwrecked Lumina? How long ago?" Vela conversed further with the Coda leader, light patterns flowing between them in an increasingly fluid exchange. "Thousands of years, by their reckoning," she eventually replied. "They've developed a completely different culture, adapted to this world. Their bodies evolved for the higher gravity, hence the 4 legs." The Coda leader gestured toward the forest, its light patterns inviting. They want us to visit their settlement, Vela explained. They say they have artifacts from the skyships, things that might help us repair our vessel. Jack weighed the potential benefits against the risks. If they have salvage technology, it could cut weeks off our repair time. They also want to know about the stars, Vela added, her skin glowing with excitement. About where their ancestors came from. Jack, this confirms my research. The Lumina were spacefaring in ancient times, before the Elders rewrote our history and confined us to one world. Jack made his decision. We'll go with them, but we bring emergency beacons and weapons, just in case. As they prepared to follow the Coda into the deepening twilight of the alien forest, Jack couldn't help but marvel at the strange path fate had carved for them. What had begun as a desperate escape had led to a discovery that could reshape the understanding of not one species, but two. You know what this means, he said quietly to Vela as they walked behind the graceful quadrupedal beings. When we get back to civilized space with proof of the Coda, the Elders won't be able to suppress the truth anymore. Vela's skin pulsed with a pattern that Jack had come to recognize as her equivalent of a smile. Precisely why we must survive to tell the tale. The forest closed around them as they journeyed toward the Coda settlement, the first step in yet another unexpected chapter of their shared adventure. The Coda settlement sprawled across a wide valley nestled between purple-hued hills. Structures built from local timber and a crystalline substance reminiscent of the Elders' ships rose organically from the landscape. Some buildings wrapped around the trunks of the massive red trees, while others stood on stilts over a meandering river that cut through the center of the community. Jack and Vela were led to what appeared to be a central gathering place, a circular clearing with a raised platform at its center. Hundreds of Coda emerged from their dwellings to witness the visitors, their skin patterns flashing in waves of excitement and curiosity. They've never seen beings like us, Vela explained as she interpreted the light conversations flickering all around them. Their legends speak of the sky ancestors, but none believed they would ever encounter them in person. An older Coda with faded skin patterns approached, walking with a staff made from polished wood, inlaid with metallic components that Jack recognized as spacecraft alloy. The Elders' four eyes studied them intently before it began a complex series of light patterns. This is Lum, their historian and keeper of ancestral knowledge, Vela translated. He says they've been waiting for 5,000 cycles for the ancestors to return. Jack watched as Vela conversed with the Elder, her own skin glowing brilliantly as she formed increasingly complex responses. The communication seemed to go beyond mere words. Emotions, concepts, and shared cultural memories flowed between them. After several minutes, Vela turned to Jack, her skin pulsing with patterns he recognized as profound shock and wonder. They have a repository, she said, her translator barely keeping up with her excited clicks and whistles. A database from the original crash-landed ships. It's been maintained through generations, powered by geothermal energy. Jack, they have star charts, genetic records, historical documents, everything the Elders erased from our history. The Coda Elder gestured for them to follow. Jack kept a wary eye on their surroundings as they were led through the settlement, noting defensive positions and escape routes out of habit. But the Coda showed no signs of hostility, only reverence toward Vela and curiosity toward him. They arrived at a structure different from the others. A domed building constructed almost entirely from salvaged spacecraft materials. The entrance was sealed with a door that resembled those on the crystalline vessels of the Elders. The Elder pressed his six-fingered hand to a faded panel beside the door. Nothing happened. He turned to Vela with a series of apologetic light patterns. The ancestral power has dimmed, Vela translated. The door no longer recognizes their genetic signature after so many generations of adaptation to this world. Jack examined the panel. It's a biometric scanner. Standard technology, just more advanced than what we use. It's looking for the original Lumina genetic pattern. Vela's skin brightened with realization. Which I still have. She stepped forward and placed her own hand on the panel. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft hum emanated from the structure, and the door slid open with a hiss of escaping air. Lights flickered to life inside, illuminating a chamber filled with technology that appeared remarkably well preserved. The Coda elder stepped back, his skin flashing patterns of reverence. Other Coda who had gathered to watch fell into ritual postures, their bodies forming light displays of ceremonial significance. "They're calling me returner," Vela said quietly. "They believe my arrival fulfills their oldest prophecy." Jack followed her into the structure, which proved to be much larger inside than it appeared from the exterior. The central chamber contained what he recognized as a data core, similar to those used in advanced research facilities throughout human space, but with distinctly alien design elements. Vela approached the terminal, her skin glowing with anticipation as she placed her hands on the interface. The system responded immediately, holographic displays springing to life around her. "It's all here," she whispered in awe. "The true history of my people." Over the next hours, as the Coda kept a respectful vigil outside, Vela immersed herself in the ancient database. Jack watched as tears, a biological response her people shared with humans, formed in her 4 eyes. "We were explorers," she finally said, turning to Jack. "Before the Great Regression, the Lumina had colonies on 12 worlds across 3 star systems. We had made contact with 3 other sentient species, formed alliances, shared knowledge." "What happened?" Jack asked gently. "A faction arose that feared cultural contamination, the precursors of today's elders. They preached isolation as the only way to preserve our true nature." Vela's skin darkened with sorrow. "They sabotaged the central navigation beacon network that allowed our ships to safely travel between stars. Vessels were stranded, colonies cut off, including the ancestors of the Coda," Jack surmised. "Yes. The isolated colonies adapted to their new homes or perished. On our homeworld, the isolationists seized power and systematically erased all evidence of our spacefaring past." Vela's skin rippled with indignation. "They rewrote our history, destroyed our technology, and convinced future generations that the stars were forbidden to us." Jack processed this revelation. "And what about the connection to humans? Is there anything in the database about that?" Vela navigated through the holographic displays, accessing genetic records stored by the ancient Lumina scientists. "Here," she finally said. "The 3rd species we encountered. Protocol designation, proto-humans. The records indicate mutual genetic engineering." "What?" Jack moved closer to examine the data. "Not manipulation," Vela clarified, reading the ancient text. "Healing. Both species had genetic flaws from evolutionary bottlenecks. The Lumina suffered from neurological degradation after 12 generations. Humans had immune system vulnerabilities. The scientists from both species worked together to correct these flaws using elements from each other's robust genetic sequences." "So, we literally have pieces of each other's DNA," Jack said in wonder. "A true genetic alliance," Vela agreed. "And there's more. The database contains coordinates for Earth, from before humans had achieved spaceflight. My ancestors visited your world thousands of years ago. Their research was interrupted by an urgent signal from the perimeter sensors Jack had left active around their scout vessel. He checked his wrist device, his expression instantly hardening. "Multiple contacts descending from orbit," he reported grimly. "The configuration matches both Lumina vessels and human military ships." Vela's skin flashed with alarm. "They found us. Both of them." Jack's tactical mind raced through scenarios. "They must have followed our hyperspace wake, then conducted a standard search pattern of habitable worlds along our trajectory." "We need to get back to the ship," Vela said, already moving toward the exit. "No," Jack caught her arm gently. "That's the first place they'll look, and neither of us wants to bring war to the Coda." Outside, the Coda had already noticed the lights in the sky. Multiple vessels descending through the atmosphere. Their skin patterns showed confusion and fear. Jack turned to Vela. "How much of the database can you download to a portable device?" Understanding his intention immediately, Vela returned to the terminal. "The core elements, historical records, genetic data, star charts. Enough to prove everything to both our peoples." While she worked, Jack addressed the Coda elder through her translation. He explained the danger, the pursuing forces, and what needed to be done. The elder's skin flashed with patterns of determination as he listened. "They'll help us," Vela reported, finishing her download to a crystal data storage device, similar to those used by her people. The Elder says there are cave systems in the mountains where we can hide. Natural mineral deposits will mask our life signs from scanners. Jack nodded. And they'll camouflage the entrance to this structure, make it look like it was never opened. Buy us time. As they prepared to leave with a small group of Coda guides, Vela paused to look back at the repository of her people's true history. We'll come back, she promised, when it's safe. The sky above the valley now showed multiple streaks of light as ships entered the lower atmosphere. The Coda moved efficiently to conceal all signs of the visitor's presence, while Jack and Vela slipped away with their guides, heading toward the distant mountains. Both human military and Lumina elders, Jack mused as they moved swiftly through the forest, neither of them wanting the truth to be known. Both fearing what it means for their authority, Vela agreed, clutching the precious data crystal. But now we have proof that can't be denied. Proof that we're meant to be among the stars, together. Above them, the vessels began their search. Pattern, unaware that their quarry was already gone, carrying with them the seeds of a revelation that would change two civilizations forever. The cave system within the Purple Mountains extended far deeper than Jack had anticipated. Their Coda guides led them through narrowing passages that occasionally opened into vast chambers filled with crystalline formations that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. The minerals in these formations will mask our biosignatures, Vela explained as they set up a makeshift camp in one of the larger caverns. The Coda have used these caves as sanctuary during natural disasters for generations. Jack established a defensive perimeter with their limited equipment while Vela communicated with their guides, the 4 Coda who had accompanied them, younger members of their society chosen for their knowledge of the cave system, maintained a respectful distance, their skin patterns shifting in muted conversations among themselves. Through a narrow fissure in the cavern ceiling, they could see slices of the night sky. Occasionally, the lights of searching vessels would pass overhead, causing everyone to freeze in silence until the danger moved on. They're being thorough, Jack observed on the 3rd night of their hiding. That's at least the 5th sweep pattern over this region. Vela nodded, her skin dimmed to its lowest luminosity to avoid detection. The elders won't give up easily, not when they know what I've discovered. One of the Coda, named Tam, approached with a bowl of cave fungi prepared as food. His skin flickered in a pattern that Vela had taught Jack meant offering friendship. Jack accepted with a grateful nod. What's our plan? He asked Vela quietly as they shared the simple meal. We can't hide forever. Vela withdrew the data crystal she'd downloaded from the ancient repository. I've been studying the old star charts. There's something interesting. A hidden Lumina outpost in what you call the Cygnus system. According to these records, it was established as a fallback position, in case the isolationist movement succeeded. A refuge for those who wanted to maintain contact with other species, Jack surmised. Exactly. And the records indicate it was designed to remain self-sufficient and hidden for millennia, if necessary. Jack considered this. That's at least a month's journey from here, even with a functioning hyperdrive. And our ship is still damaged. The Coda might be able to help with that, Vela replied. Tam has been telling me about their ancestor metal, salvaged parts from the original crash that they've preserved. Some components might be compatible with our systems. Their discussion was interrupted by a soft alert from Jack's wrist device. He checked it with a frown. Someone's approaching the cave entrance, he whispered. Single life form. Human. The Coda immediately dimmed their skin patterns to near darkness, moving with practiced silence deeper into the shadows. Jack drew his sidearm, positioning himself between the cave entrance and Vela. Wait, Vela said softly, touching his arm. Let me see. She activated a small holographic projector from their emergency kit, linking it to the perimeter sensors. A fuzzy image appeared of a human figure cautiously navigating the rocky approach to the cave. The uniform was instantly recognizable. Alliance military, like Jack's own. Captain Mira Lin, Jack identified, surprise evident in his voice. My commanding officer before the evacuation. Can we trust her? Vela asked. Jack studied the image, noting that Captain Lin was alone and appeared to be deliberately avoiding the main search parties visible in the distance. She always struck me as someone who followed her conscience above orders, he finally said. but we need to be careful. They instructed the coda to remain hidden while Jack took up a defensible position near the cave entrance. Vela stayed back, ready to flee deeper into the cave system if necessary. Captain Lin's approach was methodical and professional. She paused at the cave entrance, switching on a small light that illuminated her features. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her expression was guarded but determined. "Sergeant Reed," she called softly into the darkness. "I know you're in there. I'm alone." Jack remained silent, weapon ready. "I'm not here with the main force," she continued. "I tracked you separately. We need to talk." After a tense moment, Jack replied, "Prove you're alone." "Check your scanner," she answered calmly. "And I've disabled my location beacon." Jack verified her claim with his equipment before stepping partially into view, keeping his weapon ready. "That's far enough, Captain. State your purpose." Captain Lin held up empty hands. "I'm here to warn you. The official story is that you both died in the evacuation. When they found your trail leading off-world, a joint human-Lumina task force was established. The mission parameters are—" She hesitated. "Not to rescue you. They want to silence us," Vela said, emerging slightly from the shadows, her skin glowing with just enough light to reveal her presence. "Yes," Lin confirmed. "The diplomatic situation is complicated. The Elders have threatened to cut off all relations with humanity if their heretic isn't returned. Our leadership decided it was simpler if you both just disappeared." "And where do you stand in all this, Captain?" Jack asked, still suspicious. Lin's expression hardened. "I stand for truth, Sergeant. I've seen the preliminary reports on Vela's research. If humans and Lumina share genetic markers, that changes everything about our understanding of our place in the galaxy. That knowledge belongs to everyone, not just political leaders trying to maintain control." Jack and Vela exchanged glances. "We have proof," Vela said cautiously. "Definitive proof from ancient Lumina records. And more, evidence of an entire, lost colony of my people who've evolved on this world for thousands of years." Lin's eyes widened. "The indigenous population? They're related to the Lumina?" Jack nodded. "Descendants of stranded explorers from before the isolationists took control. Captain, there's an entire hidden history here that both our governments are trying to suppress." Lin seemed to come to a decision. "I have a scout ship hidden in a ravine 5 kilometers east. Small, fast, and not on any official registry. I was going to use it to disappear myself if this mission went the way I feared it might." "You're defecting?" Jack asked in surprise. "Let's call it taking an unauthorized leave of absence in pursuit of the truth," Lin replied with a hint of a smile. "I can get you off-world before the search teams close in. They're concentrating on your damaged vessel right now, but that won't last forever." The offer was tempting, but Jack remained cautious. "And we're supposed to just trust that this isn't an elaborate trap?" "No," Lin admitted. "You have no reason to trust me. But I can tell you that 3 other officers have already been court-martialed for questioning the official narrative about your disappearance. Whatever you found, they're deadly serious about keeping it quiet." One of the coda moved forward, skin patterns flashing a question that Vela quickly translated. "Tam asks if this means you'll be leaving," she explained to Jack. The reality of their situation crystallized in that moment. They had discovered a lost branch of Vela's species, evidence that could transform 2 civilizations' understanding of their cosmic heritage. But none of it would matter if they were captured or killed before they could share it. "We need to go," Jack said finally. "But we'll return, with help." Vela conversed with the coda in their light language, expressions of promise and determination flowing between them. The coda elder who had accompanied them stepped forward, presenting Jack with a small object, a piece of technology salvaged from their ancestors' crashed ship. "He says it's a navigation cipher," Vela translated. "It contains recognition codes that will identify us as friends to any hidden Lumina outposts we might find." Jack accepted the gift with a formal bow he had observed the coda using. "Tell him we will carry their story to the stars." After gathering their essential equipment and the precious data crystal, they prepared to leave with Captain Lin. The coda would return to their settlement, continuing to conceal the evidence of the ancient repository. As they made their way through the forest toward Lin's hidden ship, Jack kept a wary eye on their new ally. Trust came hard after what they'd been through, but sometimes survival required faith in others. The search teams will be changing quadrants in about 20 minutes, Lin informed them as they moved swiftly through the underbrush. That's our window to break atmosphere without detection. And then? Vela asked. Then we head for the outer colonies, Lin replied. I have contacts in the scientific community who will protect us long enough to get your evidence verified and disseminated too widely to be suppressed. Jack nodded in agreement. It was a solid plan, their best hope for ensuring the truth would survive even if they didn't. The scout ship came into view as they crested a small ridge, sleek, black, and clearly designed for stealth rather than comfort. Lin quickly entered an access code, and the entry hatch slid open silently. Welcome to the Midnight Runner, she said with a grim smile. Not exactly a luxury liner, but she'll get us where we need to go. As they boarded, Jack took one last look at the alien world that had changed everything. Somewhere out there, the Coda were continuing their ancient vigil, guardians of a truth that had been buried for millennia. Ready to make some history? Lin asked as they strapped into the acceleration couches. Already have, Jack replied, reaching across to squeeze Vela's six-fingered hand. Now we just need to make sure everyone else learns about it too. The ship's engines ignited with barely a whisper, lifting them toward the stars and the next chapter in their unexpected journey. The outer colony of Nova Haven orbited a binary star system at the edge of human-explored space. Its main settlement, a sprawling complex of domes and towers that housed nearly 50,000 scientists, rebels, and freethinkers, glittered like a jewel against the stark backdrop of the airless moon it occupied. Welcome to the last bastion of independent research in human space, Captain Lin announced, as their ship settled onto a private landing pad on the outskirts of the settlement. After 3 weeks of careful navigation through unmarked hyperspace routes, they had finally reached their destination. The journey had given them time to fully analyze the ancient Lumina data crystal and plan their next moves. Your contact is trustworthy? Jack asked as they prepared to disembark. Lin nodded. Dr. Eliza Okoye is the leading xenogeneticist in the outer colonies. She's also my cousin, and no fan of government censorship. If anyone can verify and publish your findings in a way that can't be suppressed, it's her. Vela had spent the voyage adapting a hooded environmental suit to conceal her distinctive appearance. While Nova Haven was known for its diverse population, including non-human species, Illumina would attract unwanted attention. The elders had surely circulated her description to their human allies. They were met at the airlock by a tall woman with close-cropped silver hair and intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Dr. Okoye greeted Lin with a brief embrace before studying Jack and the disguised Vela with undisguised curiosity. So, these are your fugitives, she said in a melodious accent. Come, my laboratory is secure. They followed her through a maze of corridors, eventually reaching a research facility marked with the insignia of the Independent Scientific Consortium, a coalition of researchers who had broken away from Earth-controlled institutions decades earlier. Once inside, with security protocols engaged, Vela was finally able to remove her concealing hood. Dr. Okoye's eyes widened at the sight of her luminescent, skin and four-eyed diamond pattern. Extraordinary, she murmured. I've only seen Lumina in restricted research footage. Your people guard their privacy zealously. With good reason, Vela replied, though not the reason most believe. Over the next hours, they shared everything, the data crystal's contents, their discovery of the Coda, and the genetic connection between humans and Lumina that both governments were desperate to conceal. Dr. Okoye's initial skepticism quickly transformed into scientific excitement as she verified the genetic markers herself. This is unprecedented, she declared, examining the holographic display of overlapping DNA sequences. Not just similar evolutionary pathways, actual shared genetic code that could only come from deliberate engineering or a common source species. The question is, how do we release this information without it being immediately discredited or suppressed? Jack asked. Dr. Okoye smiled for the first time. That's where Nova Haven's advantages come into play. We maintain the largest independent communications array in human space. Once we broadcast, both Earth authorities and the Lumina elders will know, but it will be too late to contain. They'll try to discredit it, Lin warned. Claim it's fabricated data, which is why we need physical proof as well as data, Dr. Okoye replied. We need a coda. The suggestion hung in the air, its implications clear. Bringing a coda to Nova Haven would provide irrefutable evidence of their claims, but would also mean exposing the hidden colony to potential danger. There's another option, Vela said after a moment of reflection. The ancient repository mentioned a hidden Lumina outpost in the Cygnus system, a refuge for those who oppose the isolationists. If it still exists, then we'd have Lumina, witnesses who know the true history, Jack finished. The Cygnus system is a 2-week journey from here, Lynn calculated. Risky, but potentially worth it. Their planning was interrupted by an urgent alert from the laboratory's security system. Dr. Okoye checked the notification with a frown. 2 Alliance military vessels have entered orbit, she reported. And a Lumina diplomatic ship is requesting emergency docking clearance. Jack's expression hardened. They found us. Someone must have tracked our approach. No, Lynn said thoughtfully. I think it's something else. Nova Haven accepts thousands of ships each month. I doubt they could have specifically tracked ours. Unless they're not looking for us specifically anymore, Vela suggested. What if they're implementing a broader strategy, checking all independent colonies systematically? Dr. Okoye accessed the colony's main communication channel, listening to the official exchange between Nova Haven authorities and the new arrivals. They're claiming to be conducting a joint exercise in diplomatic cooperation, she reported with obvious skepticism. Requesting permission to send representatives to discuss matters of mutual interest with colony leadership. A pretext to search the colony, Jack concluded. We need to move quickly, Lynn decided. If we wait until they've established a presence here, getting off-world will become nearly impossible. Dr. Okoye nodded in agreement. I can have your ship refueled and ready in 3 hours. In the meantime, I'll begin the process of verifying and packaging the data for broadcast. You'll be putting yourself at risk, Jack warned. Science is always worth the risk, she replied simply. But I won't broadcast until you've had time to reach Cygnus. If the outpost exists, having living witnesses will make our case far stronger. They worked feverishly over the next hours, preparing both for their departure and for the eventual revelation that would shake 2 civilizations. Dr. Okoye's team created backup copies of the ancient data, distributing them to trusted colleagues throughout the outer colonies. As they prepared to board their ship, Nova Haven's main plaza was already filling with the joint Human-Lumina diplomatic delegation, a thinly veiled search party looking for them. We have maybe 20 minutes before they lock down all departures, Lynn warned as they hurried through maintenance tunnels toward the private landing pad. Just as they reached the final corridor leading to their ship, they found their path blocked by 2 figures, one human in an Alliance military uniform, and one Lumina with the distinctive markings of an elder. Captain Lynn, the human officer said coldly. You've been declared AWOL and are ordered to surrender yourself and your companions immediately. The Lumina elder's skin flashed with patterns of authority and judgment as they focused 4 eyes on Vela. The heretic will be returned to face justice for her crimes against our people. Jack tensed, hand moving toward his concealed sidearm. But before the situation could escalate, a voice spoke from behind the 2 officials. I believe you're overstepping your jurisdiction on my station. Dr. Okoye approached, flanked by several Nova Haven security officers. Her expression was calm, but unyielding. Nova Haven does not recognize the authority of either Earth Alliance or the Lumina Elders to conduct arrests on our sovereign territory, she continued. These people are under my protection as scientific refugees. This is a matter of interspecies security, the human officer protested. Is it? Dr. Okoye raised an eyebrow. Or is it a matter of suppressing scientific truth? Because in about 5 minutes, my colleagues will be broadcasting some very interesting genetic research to every scientific institution in human and Lumina space. The elder's skin flashed with alarm patterns. That would violate our diplomatic agreements. Nova Haven signed no such agreements, Dr. Okoye replied smoothly. Now, I suggest you both return to your respective vessels and prepare your superiors for some rather dramatic revelations about your shared history. The standoff stretched for several tense seconds before the human officer spoke into his communication device. Moments later, a squad of Alliance soldiers appeared at the far end of the corridor. This is your final warning, the officer said. Surrender the heretic and the deserters. Dr. Okoye sighed. So be it. She nodded to one of her security team, who activated a control panel on the wall. Suddenly, emergency barriers slammed down between the two groups, sealing Jack, Vela, Lin, and Dr. Okoye off from their pursuers. "That won't hold them for long," Dr. Okoye said, already moving toward the landing pad. "Go. Find your evidence. We'll hold them here and begin the broadcast." "They'll arrest you," Lin protested. "They'll try," Dr. Okoye replied with a grim smile. "But Nova Haven has defenses they haven't encountered before, and by the time they break through, the truth will already be spreading across the stars." There was no time for prolonged farewells. Jack, Vela, and Lin raced aboard their ship as the sounds of the Alliance forces attempting to breach the emergency barriers echoed behind them. "Setting course for Cygnus," Lin announced as they lifted off. "Maximum acceleration once we clear the docking field." Through the view screen, they watched Nova Haven recede beneath them. Already, Alliance vessels were moving to intercept, but Lin's piloting skills were exceptional. She wove through the orbital traffic with precision, angling toward the hyperspace. "Jump point." "They're broadcasting," Vela reported, monitoring the communication frequencies. Dr. Okoye has kept her word. The pursuing vessels fired warning shots across their bow, non-lethal but clear in their intent. Lin pushed the ship harder, stretching its capabilities to the limit. "Hyperspace in 10 seconds, she announced, her voice tense with concentration. The starfield around them stretched and blurred as they made the jump just seconds before their pursuers could lock on tractor beams. The chaotic swirl of hyperspace enveloped them, carrying them toward the Cygnus system and what they hoped would be the final piece of evidence they needed. Jack turned to Vela, whose skin was glowing with a pattern he had come to recognize as hope mingled with determination. "Even if we don't find the outpost," he said quietly, "the truth is out there now. They can't suppress it completely." "But they'll try," Vela replied. "They'll claim the data was falsified, that it's all an elaborate hoax. We need the living witnesses, Lumina who know their true history and have preserved it through the millennia." Lin joined them, having set the autopilot for the long journey ahead. "Whatever we find in the Cygnus system, you two have already changed everything. Two species that thought themselves alone in their evolutionary journey now have proof of an ancient connection." Jack nodded, thinking of the long path that had brought them here, from the evacuation where he alone had stayed behind with Vela, through their desperate escape, the crash landing, their discovery of the coda, and now this final quest for irrefutable proof. "It all started because one soldier refused to leave an alien girl behind," Lin observed with a hint of admiration. "No," Jack corrected her gently. "It started because one Lumina archivist refused to accept the lies she was told about her people's history. I just helped her find the truth." Vela's skin glowed with the pattern Jack had come to realize was her equivalent of a grateful smile. "We found it together. And soon, both our species will know it too." The ship hurtled through hyperspace, carrying them toward what they hoped would be sanctuary and vindication. Behind them, across human and Lumina space, Dr. Okoye's broadcast was already reaching curious minds and open hearts, planting the seeds of a new understanding between two peoples who had been connected since ancient times. Whatever challenges still lay ahead, one thing was certain. The solitary choice of a human soldier who refused to abandon an alien girl had set in motion events that would forever change the destinies of two civilizations among the stars. The end.